from Swoosh English, and I'll be focusing on another one of my blog articles today, which is based around writing. Have done, did, do, or is doing, getting tenses correct for the OET. This lesson will provide an overview of how and when to use different tenses for the OET writing section. And the question, which tense should I use, is a question which I've heard with regularity when preparing students for OET writing. Comments include, if the patient still has the condition, then should it be the present? But he presented with the condition 5 weeks ago, so maybe I should use the past. And what is the present perfect for anyway? The distinctions between present and past can often seem less than simple when in the midst of writing those referral and discharge letters, and the decision as to which to use can often be complex and highly context dependent. Here are some guidelines then, which should prove useful in order to help recognize which tenses best fit which situations. Just to note, this is not going to cover every single possible tense that you could use in the OET, but it will look at the most common tenses and some of the principles behind their use. So first of all, the present simple. The present simple will be used in the context of OET writing in order to report unchanging facts. So it will be used at the beginning of the letter when you report the patient's age, name, and status, for instance. You can see here in this sentence, the patient is 49 years old. She is divorced and has 2 dependent children. In this case, we're using the present simple to present this information because it's true and it's not subject to change anytime soon. It can thus be regarded, for our present context, as an unchanging fact. Another example, the patient is allergic to penicillin. Another example, the patient is allergic to penicillin. This is another fact which is not subject to change, hence we can use the present simple. Now let's have a look at the past simple. Once you've provided the patient's unchanging status and profile, the past simple, generally speaking, is the tense you will most likely go on to use in your referral or discharge letter. This is because the past simple is used to provide background information, which has been specifically linked to a past time period. For example, in the sentence you can see, the patient first presented 2 months ago with a bowel complaint. At this time, she displayed symptoms consistent with IBS. Here we're using the past simple for background because we're referring to something which occurred at a fixed time in the past. The use of the time phrase 2 months ago tells us this. Other time phrases referring to the past, such as the previous month, last week, yesterday, will all also require the use of the past simple for the same reasons. Using the past simple doesn't mean that the information is irrelevant to the present. It just means that the information is being presented in a context which is fixed in the past and only in the past. 2 weeks ago, for example, cannot be the present. It may be developed and expanded upon in the following parts of the letter. Next, we look at using the present perfect. Very generally, the present perfect is used to connect a past action or state to the present. So once you've given the background of the case using the past simple, it's likely that you will move on to focus on elements of the situation which, although they began in the past, are more clearly linked to the present. This is likely to relate to more recent treatment or advice the patient has received, or more recent actions or attitudes which have been associated with the patient, which, as a result of their relevance to the present, may not carry a specific time marker. Examples of this, as you can see in front of you, are, I've prescribed the patient propranolol in order to help control his anxiety. Or, the patient has responded well to treatment. Notice that in neither of these examples is a specific time phrase such as 2 weeks ago or yesterday included. This is because the intention of the writer is not to communicate this information occurring in the past. Rather, he wishes to link a past event to the present in order to show its continued relevance to the current moment. The writer is communicating that there has been no change in terms of relevancy from the past to the present in these cases. However, time phrases including for and since may be used with the present perfect, as both these prepositions can be used to link past and present actions. For example, the patient has received massage for the last 5 months. In this case, she received them in the past and she receives them up to now. So we have here a really clear example of how the past, 5 months ago, is being linked to the present moment. Finally, we're going to look at using the present continuous. In contrast to the present perfect, the present continuous is designed to focus specifically on a present action without necessarily relating it directly to the past. We would tend to use the present continuous in our referral or letters when we want to communicate a piece of information which has occurred extremely recently. It will likely be something new which wasn't occurring before, which the medical practitioner will have to respond to or take into account in an active manner. For example, as you can see written here, the patient's condition is deteriorating, or the patient is refusing to take her medication. Using the present continuous in these cases indicates that the situation in the present is different to the situation in the past. In the past, the patient's condition was not deteriorating, but now it is. In the past, the patient was not refusing to take her medication, now she is. The use of the present continuous provides a sort of distinction from, or potential contrast to, a previous situation. Its disassociation from the past is what makes it unique in its relevance to the present. Its disassociation from the past is what makes it unique in its relevant present. Note, however, that the opposite to this can be true by using an adverb such as still. In the example, the patient is still refusing to take her medication. What we are doing here is we are directly linking some information in the present to the past, but we are demonstrating to the medical practitioner that action needs to be taken. So, a quick summary then. We use the present simple for something which is unchanging or likely to be true for a long time. So when writing about the patient's profile, for example, we use the past simple for background information set specifically in the past. And an example of this would be talking about the background to the patient's condition. We use the present perfect for information which links the past to the present. Examples would be responses to the patient's condition, which are consistent with the past, which don't have a specific time reference, or which use a time reference with for or since in order to demonstrate the linkage of the past and the present. And finally, we use the present continuous for current information, which requires a present reaction or response, and it's likely to be different to something which happened in the past. Examples of this are developments in the patient's situation or condition, which are distinct from or different to the past.